Hi, and welcome to the Dingers Podcast, episode 51. This is your host, Mitch. I'm here with my boys, Kevin and Jeff. How are you guys today?
Oh, I'm just Andy. Thanks for asking. Temperature's real low, not very much humidity. It's great weather right now.
I love it compared to last week, the
Oh my God,
scorcher
it's
we had.
miserable.
The only complaint I have is the smoke in the air from the Canadian wildfires because it's making my allergies go nuts. So, folks at home, I'm going to try to be good about muting my mic before I have a dry, completely unhelpful cough. So we got that going for us.
How are we doing? How are we doing in here? Is our hearts okay after this rough week and rough Friday?
Yeah, I kind of been preparing myself for this for a while. I mean, I can see the writing on the wall when you have three of your core players that are in a contract here at the same time, and they both are going to want, well, combined, you're looking at almost $1 billion in salary. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So for all you people out there on Twitter that are just complaining that the guys running the team are complete flatulating buttheads, get a calculator out, work some numbers. It just doesn't add up. They weren't going to keep all three.
Yeah, and the question across all media all year had been if you could keep one, and then it became if you could keep two, and then as it got closer, it was like, no, we're going to keep all three. It's fine. We're going to have extensions. It's fine.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't fine. It wasn't fine Friday. Things went down fast. Well, this podcast is presented to you by Chi City Sports. If you're interested in all things Chicago sports, this is your place. Go check out the forums, the podcast at ChiCitySports.com. We're going to do our Crack Our Beer Player of the Week. I know it's like, I don't even know if a lot of people even watched the games this weekend. I did. I haven't missed a game this year, and I wasn't going to start this weekend after that. Still supporting the logo, not the player. Support the logo. So Cracker Beer is sponsored by Toppling Goliath in Decorah, Iowa. Great beer. Who's your guys' Cracker Beer Player of the Week?
So my player this week is Rafael Ortega because he broke me out of my little dinger slump I had going on. And it was totally a situation of I was the last one to pick because Mitch and Jeff had gotten a couple dingers, and it was kind of one of those. One of them picked Bodie or Contreras, the other one picked Wisdom, and it was like, okay, well, who am I going to go with? And then after I picked him, he turned around and had a 3-dinger game versus the Nationals the next day. Should have just kept with him.
Ride the hot bat.
Yeah. What about you, Jeff?
Who's your dinger of the week or player of the week?
I'm going with our ace, Kyle Hendricks. Pitched 7 innings of 1 run, 3 Ks, 1 base on ball, and picked up his 13th win of the season, which I think that leads the major leagues in wins for a pitcher.
Yeah. Isn't that nuts that he's leading?
No.
Even after a rocky start.
Yeah.
Well, it's more. I didn't imagine the run support he'd have to get that many wins.
Yeah.
That's what I was going for.
My crack beer.
All three.
Yeah. My crack beer is Wilson Contreras because we need to offer him a contract and extend him since he's the guy. So I'm gonna crack my beer. But we're gonna welcome on Bryan Smith from Bleacher Nation. He is the man when it comes to prospects, and so we got a ton of questions for Bryan. Welcome, Bryan.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. I gotta say that not as much like devastation and depression in a Cubs podcast as I'm used to. I appreciate you guys are upbeat. You're drinking. I'll join you.
Oh, nice. Yep.
Yeah. No, we gotta keep the morale high, and we're all about we get it. We love these players, but we've kind of seen this on the wall. We've talked about in our past podcasts. So we're all about the young guys. I mean, I just had Justin Steele on our podcast 2 weeks ago. We had Brennan Davis about a month ago. There's still some excitement with the guys, and especially the haul that we just received. We're excited about that.
Yeah, I've been kind of refusing to let myself really feel. I went and watched each Rizzo, Bryant, and Javi's first dingers on their other team and went, okay, the swings look the same. They almost look the same. They're just in the wrong colors. The only thing that got me was we had to purposely not tell my middle son that Javi was traded because he was playing in the Iowa Games soccer tournament. And it happened between his first and second game of a 4-game set, and we knew it was just going to like tank him. So we waited until he finished the tournament, and then we were like, all right, so here's what's been going on.
Yep.
My son's a Rizzo guy, and so he asked me the other day if we can start rooting for the Yankees now, and if we can only watch Yankees games now. So I have to teach him, it's the laundry, it's not the guy, it's not the names. So it's a good lesson.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
No, I think I read 128 times on Twitter that all 3 players hit a home run in their debut with the other team. So that horse is successfully beat to death.
That's
Yeah,
funny.
Kevin, you want to give us a little rundown of the series and lead us into our first question?
Yeah, I'm going to keep this short and sweet because it was the weekend series while there was other stuff going on over the weekend. The Cubs lost to 2 of 3 versus the Nats. We had young arms in the bullpen that we're going to talk about in a little bit. We got to see Manny Rodriguez for the first time, along with Michael Rucker and Cody Hoyer, who we got in the Kimbrel trade. Manny Rodriguez looked really good Friday night. He had that 100-mile-an-hour fastball. I think it was Pitching Ninja put his 100-mile-an-hour fastball in his 89-mile-an-hour slider, and it looked like the same coming out of the hand, and they just ended up in wacky places. But unfortunately, Hernandez ran into one of his fastballs and got a walk-off home run, but I think that's more fluke than anything, and he's a young guy. He's going to learn through it. So, Brian, we've talked about shifting our focus the rest of the season. What do you think we should expect from Rodriguez this year? And what should we be looking out for him in his development this season?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. That pitch that the home run was hit on Sunday was a good pitch. I mean, and, it was 100 miles an hour on the sort of bottom in part of the zone. And, for a lefty to hit that ball to left center like that, an impressive piece of hitting. I think you just tip your cap. For me, the thing I was sort of anticipating with Manny was, are we going to get those nerves that give him the command issues that he's had in the past? And he really didn't have that in either of the 2 outings. I thought he did a nice job, keeping the heart rate down, staying under control. And if he does that, the stuff is going to be more than enough. I mean, it's 97 to 100 with a fastball. He throws 2 different fastballs. His 2-seamer has pretty good movement, and he's got a really nice slider. And so he's going to load up on strikeouts. We'll see about the walk rate. But, yeah, I mean, I think what you're really hoping for is just a guy who gets comfortable pitching in the bigs so that, next year, if they're planning to be a little more competitive, then he can be maybe a 7th, 8th inning guy.
Sweet. About Hoyer, like we don't know much about him. I mean, he was from the White Sox, brought over in the Kimbrel trade. What should we kind of expect out of him? I remember seeing him last year a little bit when the White Sox and Cubs played. What should we expect a little bit out of him?
Yeah, I mean, he was fantastic last year. I mean, he came up I'm looking it up now. Yeah, I mean, 12 hits in 23 innings he allowed, and with the ERA in the ones. And so he, I think the White Sox fans were thinking that he was going to be their maybe 7th inning guy this year. And he struggled a little bit. His fastball's been hit real hard this year. I think that the Cubs can, work on just moving that around a little more, working the secondaries a little more, and just balancing that out. His stuff is good enough. If you look at the 2 secondaries he throws, a changeup and a breaking ball, they're both getting just as many swings and misses as they did last year. So I think he'll be fine. I think that's a piece in the bullpen for years to come here. Yeah,
I know Hendricks from the White Sox made a little bit of comment about who the Cubs are getting, and they're like, dude, this guy's going to be a future closer. And coming from a guy like Hendricks, that's saying a lot, that he sees something out of him. So I'm excited to kind of see him get innings this second half, see what we have in him, see his success.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about the future of our outfield with Brennan Davis. What do you think we should expect to see him at AAA?
Yeah, I'll be curious if my thought has been that they probably won't do AAA this year, that they'll keep him in AA for the rest of the season, start him in AAA next year, and then, that sort of leads to maybe a summer call up. But he's playing so darn well that, I think if he has another 3 weeks that are like his last 3 weeks, maybe the Cubs just feel like he's just not quite being challenged enough. And AAA is a whole different thing in terms of the pitch mix you see. You have a lot more crafty veterans than you get in AA. So that'll be a nice development part whenever he does reach there, to kind of learn how to hit when you're getting pitched backwards and, seeing a whole bunch of junk.
Yeah, sticking with the outfield, I mean, we received Pete Crow Armstrong and Kevin Alcantara in trades here just the other day. What should we expect out of those two? I mean, just thinking about those three in the outfield gets me a little bit excited. Kevin Alcantara was number 12 prospect. He's only 19 years old. He was raking in rookie ball with a 360 average. I mean, just killing it. So what should we expect out of that? Is that going to be our future outfield? And what should we expect from each one of those guys?
Yeah, those guys are far away. So, I mean, there's a lot of steps between where they are and where Brennan is. But Kevin Alcantara is actually kind of an interesting guy to compare to Brennan, because when Brennan enters the Cubs system, he's a basketball player. He needs like a huge amount of weight to get put on. I mean, I think Brennan's up 40 pounds of muscle since he joined the Cubs farm system. And so Kevin Alcantara is really the same. I think if he'd been born in the States, he probably ends up a basketball player. He's 6'6" and skinny as a gust of wind is going to blow him over if he gets to Chicago like this in the winter. So I think the focus with him is just going to be, let's put on some weight, and you move really well through the zone. We're not going to worry so much about your swing. We're just going to worry about getting the LBs on you.
Yeah, looking at his swing, he kind of reminds me in Soriano, a little bit Alfonso Soriano, really skinny, lanky, kind of has the same type of swing, as him. What should we expect out of Pete Crow Armstrong? I mean, he was pretty sought after pick from the Mets. Know he can go out and get him. A little bit of information: his mom played the mom in Little Big League, so little movie stardom. What should we expect out of him?
I call this because there were no videos of Pete Crow Armstrong this year that I could find besides, a few, YouTube and Twitter clips. So I called a scout that I knew that was familiar with Pete from his amateur days and asked about him. And I loved the comp I got back. He said, Steve Finley. And I think that's a fun name to throw out there. Us guys that grew up in the 90s, certainly remember Steve and what a good ball player he was, as somebody that checked a whole lot of boxes, could hit for some power, went and got the ball in center field and hit for a decent average. And I think that's what Pete does. He hits line drives no matter where you throw the pitch, is what I've heard and sort of what you see on the little bit of video that's out there.
I haven't heard that name in a long time.
Yeah, I had to go look him up because I was like, that name sounds familiar. And then I immediately saw the picture. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I had a ton of baseball cards.
Yeah.
Well, with the addition of Nick Madrigal, I'm excited about Madrigal. I think he's hit at every level that he's played. And so, how is the situation with him and Nico going to play out, do you think? Is that our future double play combination? Or I know Nico's played a little bit in the outfield. Are they planning to maybe move him around? What do you think is going to be the kind of the future? Is that the double play combination of the future?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? I mean, I think that what we've learned about Nico that we really like is, that's a Gold Glove second baseman, and that's going to be tough for me to move a guy off that position. Even if I think he can be a league average shortstop, wouldn't I sort of rather the Gold Glove at second base? So, and I don't know that Nick can play shortstop. So that push and pull is going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how Nico does, in that shortstop role where those throws moving to his right are that much longer. So I do have some questions there. I know somebody on Cubs Twitter suggested, maybe Madrigal should play a lot of DH, and that sounds funny, assuming the DH is, around next year. I know that sounds funny because that's not what we think of from a DH, but I think it's kind of an inspired idea because, it allows you to keep Nico there at second. And, Nick hits enough to be an above league average hitter. And I think, it's unlikely that the NL is going to have 15 great DHs next year. So, getting an above average hitter in that spot, I think that's kind of fun. I'm gonna throw my support behind that now.
And it leaves the door open with all the money we have to maybe go get us Trevor Story or
Marcus Semien.
Semien. Yeah,
because that market's going to be pretty big this offseason. So out of the pitchers that we got in the trades, like, who do you think has the most upside, and who are you most excited to see?
Yeah, I'm really excited about Caleb Killian, who they got in the Chris Bryant trade, who his numbers are really good. I don't think he's walked 10 people this year, and he's struck out more than 90. So the numbers are fantastic. But when I looked in the video, it supported it all the way. I mean, people looked at the numbers and they said, is it kind of like Kyle Hendricks? And, no, he's not. He's not like, Greg Maddux 3.0 if Kyle's 2.0. But what Caleb is a plus stuff guy. He went into the pandemic year and changed his stuff profile completely, and he's up to 97. I think even touching 98 this year, but like holding 95 into the 7th inning. And he throws this cutter up to like 92 miles an hour, and he throws probably more cutters than any other pitch, almost like sort of Darvish does in certain starts. And it's a really good pitch. And I think I sort of threw out just the way he looks and how easy his velocity is. He reminded me of Zach Wheeler a little bit. I'm really excited about him. I think that was a nice get and a nice job by the scouts.
It's interesting because I know when they break it down, they list, or a lot of people list, like the Javi trade and some of the other ones for the return being like exceptional, and then the Bryant one is like it was a neck and neck. So for him to be the guy the pitcher you're most excited to see is kind of, I think that's a big deal for the Chris Bryant trade.
Yeah, I said today on Twitter I think that my current pitching prospect rankings in the Cubs system would be your guy's boy Justin Steele number 1. Caleb Killian 2, and Braylon Marquez 3. So, to get 2 guys this year to jump over Braylon, I think is a nice thing for the organization. And those are 2 guys. I mean, Justin's going to be up in 2 weeks here, and Caleb's going to be up next year, I think. So they're guys that can help soon.
Nice.
Yeah, I think at a time like this, when you read something, you got to really pay attention to who's putting it out there, because there's a lot of emotions going into the writing and the comments about who got screwed over in the trades at the deadline and stuff like that. We didn't know what we had when we had Chris Bryant and Javi Baez and Anthony Rizzo before they became those 3 guys. I mean, anything could happen. Chris Bryant could have got hit by a bus walking across the street to the stadium and never could have been Chris Bryant.
Well, to your point, I mean, I received the Bryant trade, I think, the most negatively of the 3, because you go look at those guys' prospect rankings, and it didn't seem like it was a good enough return for him. And so I went into reviewing those 2 guys really negatively. And then, just to see on video those guys pop, especially, it's like, okay, the Cubs do know what they're doing. There's a lot of people working over there on Waveland that are working pretty hard to get the best return possible. And I think they found 2 guys with a bunch of upside. And so, that was nice to see, and to sort of remind myself, okay, step back, and, you don't go into the whole process of thinking about these guys with the emotion of those trades.
Yeah, and
so
it's
if
not
you
like
were,
go ahead.
So if you were to rank I would say the top 5 gets out of this trade deadline deals, who would you rank as the top 5 that we received out of these trades?
Okay. I think I can do 4 off the top of my head, and then I might have to look for the 5th. But the first would be Pete Crow Armstrong. I think, that's a first-round pick the Cubs got. I think I would have him probably top 5 or 6 in the system. Even though he's missing a year with shoulder surgery, I still think that potential is really high. I would have Caleb Killian second. I mean, I think he is a no doubt top 10 prospect in the system for me, which is a compliment nowadays. And I'd have Kevin Alcantara third. I think there's enough potential there, but he's probably just outside the top 10. I think I have Canario, the outfielder they got in the Bryant trade, 4th among those guys, and 5th. I think it might be Greg Deichmann, the outfielder they got from the A's in the Chafin trade that I think we'll see this year. I mean, as far as ranking prospects goes, Deichmann is really close to the majors. He's going to be up in a couple weeks, so that floor is so much higher than you have with a lot of the other guys. The other guys they got are so raw that they're harder to jump over Greg, who's going to be producing soon enough.
Yeah, we've seen them kind of just fit right into like Fangraphs. I mean, it's a good get when like Pete Armstrong's right up there in the top 5.
Well, I mean, look at Alcantara in the 2 spot. The Fangraphs loves Alcantara.
Yep. And even like Jordan Wicks, who we just drafted, like throwing up there in the top 10. Like, I mean, our system is gotten replenished, and we've had really good success out of our pitching. So could you go a little bit into who we've had in our system there for a while? I know like guys like Ryan Jensen, like he's been just killing it on there. Some other names that we can look forward to that have been just killing it in the minor leagues that people aren't talking about.
Yeah, I mean, so you see, I think the thing about the Cubs system right now is that we have a really good top prospect in Brennan. We have phenomenal depth that I think, between the draft and these trades, the farm system's really deep. And so I think that's going to help it start to be ranked a lot higher. The weak spot in the system right now is that there's not the number 2, 3, and 4 prospects that are like also top 100 guys that you'd love in a great farm system. So what the Cubs sort of need as their next step is these group of players, these group of young hitters with a bunch of upside to take that next step and become top 100 guys. And so for me, Fangraphs has Kevin Alcantara in the 2 spot, which I think is, sort of a divisive opinion. Who I have in the 2 spot is Owen Casey, who's the outfielder the Cubs got in the Yu Darvish trade, who's in rookie ball in Arizona right now. And he's just, from everything I've heard there, I've talked to a few people in the organization there and a few people who've just seen him play, that they just can't believe the at-bats this kid takes. I mean, he's walking more than he's striking out, and pitchers just cannot beat him. I mean, apparently the adjustments that he can make in an at-bat to get to a batted ball event or to get to a walk are just phenomenal. And he has a ton of power, probably top 3 in the system in power. So, I think a pitcher that was in Arizona in the Cubs system told me that he's like Barry Bonds for that league. So, I have him too right now. And he's sort of the guy that I think has popped this year for me that I'm really excited about.
Well, and everybody was like talking about Reginald Preciado, yeah. Preciado is like being the get out of that trade, and it might be that Owen Casey is going to be the guy that might shine the most out of that. So yeah, we've talked a little bit about Steele. We've seen Keegan Thompson and what he's going to do, and he's getting sent down to get lengthened out to become a starter. Is there any other guys that you're looking forward to kind of maybe seeing make a jump this next year?
I mean, you mentioned Ryan Jensen, but I'm going to mention him again because I think the Cubs are going to name him pitcher of the month in the minors in a few days here. He had a ERA in the 1s, and I think there's a pretty good chance that he's going to go to Double-A, and if not this week, then maybe next week. And he's had a really exciting development. In May, he was really like out of feel. He was really throwing like nothing but fastballs for a few outings, and he was really getting hit by lefties hard. And the Cubs went to him in June and they were like, dude, you got to throw more than fastball slider. And against lefties, we really like your changeup, and we've been teaching you this curveball that you throw in bullpens, but we want you to bring it to games. And he did, and there was an adjustment. And then in July, it all clicked. And, Ryan has 2 really good fastballs, a 1-seam fastball that goes in on righties' hands and a 4-seam fastball that just rides up, and now throws slider, curveball, changeup. And so he was a guy that I think a lot of people thought was going to become a reliever that I think might be able to stick and make it as a starter. And if he does, he's got a bunch of upside. Yeah, I mean, Rich Harden is the comparison you hear all the time. And I'm excited about Ryan.
I did see a video of Cole Franklin throwing today for the first time, and it looked filthy. So I want to see some more Cole Franklin. His oblique.
Have you guys had Cole on yet?
We haven't. I've talked to him, and we just couldn't set up a time. And I was like, oh, let's hit you up in the off season as your transition. So yeah, he's one that I really want to get on. We had Max Bain on he's great and been successful. So yeah,
he was our first guest.
He was our first guest this year. Yep,
he's one of the best.
Yeah,
he's awesome.
Max is great.
$1 million question for our listeners, Brian. When you see the next push for the Cubs reaching the postseason?
Yeah, I don't see the team that can be competitive in next season right now. It's hard for me to imagine the Cubs putting out a team that can be successful. I do think that it's possible you use next year as a transition year and you build towards, competing for the division in 2023 and then having higher aspirations than the division, trying to win the pennant in, 24, 25 and sort of allocating your budget towards building towards those seasons is sort of how I would think about it. We can be competitive in 23 and we can be contenders in the mid 2020s.
That's what I'm a little worried that, I don't know, Cubs Twitter, I'll use that verbiage or whatever, is going to look at this offseason and go, you have all the money in the world, just buy all the players and let's push again next year, which is one of those that's a short-term potential gain, but what you'll end up sacrificing down the line is all those years later on that could turn out to be well and letting the farm develop.
Just look at the seasons we had in 16, 17, and 18. What we spent in 16 to win that World Series. How many great players that were really top prospects in our farm system that never, ever put on a Chicago Cubs Major League jersey. And then we kept spending in 17 and 18 and nothing panned out. I mean, we depleted the farm system to the, if we were buyers this year, I have no idea what we're giving people.
Yeah.
So where would you rank our system? Like right now, where do you think at the end of the year, where do you think we're going to sit in a prospect list?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have quite the handle on the other 29 teams that I probably should, but I would say that I would be surprised if there's 5 farm systems that are deeper than the Cubs system. Now that I wouldn't say that means, that I'm saying they have a top 5 system, because other teams have more high-end talent, and that is that might be the most important thing in terms of prospect development. But the Cubs have that depth, and if they can get a few of these hitters and a couple of those arms like Ryan and Cole and Jordan Wicks to get to that next level, if they can graduate some of these guys into top 100, then they can get there. I'd say now 10, 12 maybe, somewhere in there.
Awesome. Well, we don't want to take up too much of your time. So thank you for all the information on all our farm system, all the guys who we just received. Where can somebody, if they want to get more information, where can they follow you on Twitter? What's your handle?
Yeah, I'm at Cub Prospects, CUB Prospects, and right over at Bleacher Nation. So yeah, we're gonna be writing a lot more about the minors in the next 2 months as the focus turns a little bit more that direction. So it should be fun. And yeah, guys, I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, and he just put out an article on basically laying out, going through every single player. It was a great read. Helped me kind of a little bit come to grips with everything and get excited about the future. And that's kind of what we were excited when this happened back in 2012 when the whole thing started. So it's that time again where we can get excited and get excited to watch guys hitting dingers and in AA and AAA, and just dream of the day of them putting on a pinstripes and being at the Federal Landmark. So thanks, Brian, for jumping on. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, guys. Cheers.
Yes.
Cheers.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it.
See you later, Brian. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, so that was Bryan Smith, Bleacher Nation, great writer. Love listening to him just now, man. I think that helps us is kind of just comes to grip with what just happened. And I mean, how did you guys handle when the whole thing was going down on Friday? I mean, I was on Twitter following the whole thing. I was back in Northeast Iowa working on my farm, and I was putting up electric fence and doing stuff for our food plot for our deer. And I was like, all right, we need to take a break. I know trade deadlines are going down. We need to track this and what's going down. And like Rizzo had been traded that Thursday night. Baez was the first one. Was he the first one that day?
Yeah.
Or no, Kimbrel was before him.
Kimbrel was the first one.
Kimbrel was before him, and then Baez. And like when Baez went, we're like,
what?
maybe there's a chance we're gonna extend KB. We're
Right?
building around KB. Like, let's go.
Yep.
And then like, no, I sense a little bit of stirring going around with Jeff Passan, and then right before the trade deadline, he gone. And
Yeah, that Friday was nuts because I was at the Iowa games watching my son play soccer and taking video footage because we have a whole bunch of family outside of state who wanted to see the game. So I simultaneously killed my phone battery taking video and refreshing Twitter. And that was pretty nuts. And I was telling these guys, we decided my middle son's favorite player is Javi. So we decided we're not telling him that Javi was traded until after the whole tournament because we didn't know how exactly he was going to react. And he knows now, but and I even showed him Javi's dinger with the Mets. And he just was like, that's wrong. That's all he said. He walked away. And my wife is boycotting the Cubs right now. We're not allowed to watch the games on the TV, she says. But so we'll see. It won't last very long, though. We'll get him back on, especially after Ortega hit 3 in a row. So
yeah, that was all right. Well, we have Jake is going to jump on. Jake's been part of our podcast. How's it going, Jake?
Good, guys. Good stuff with Bryan. I'm honored to follow him up. He's obviously, I know you spoke highly of him when he signed off there, but yeah, that guy knows his stuff, and it's probably one of my favorite follows on Twitter. So happy to jump on. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, man, I feel like this next, like, to end our show is just going to be kind of us maybe venting, maybe just expressing how we're kind of feeling with the trades. These are guys that we've loved for so long, and then trying to think big picture. I mean, if you're following Cubs Twitter, it's like, like you said it today, you even tweeted it out today, Jake, like, man, Cubs Twitter is hot today with everything that went on. People are angry. People are frustrated. The Joe Kilgallen, like, has talked about the, the levels of acceptance. And like, he cycled back to like anger right now. So it's like, we're all in this like kind of cycle. Like, I even have gone through it even the last couple of days. So how are you doing, Jake?
Yeah, not well. God, when it happened, like when everything started happening, so the Rizzo trade first, like, didn't feel real. I was at my own baseball game, and I looked down at my phone during the middle of the game to see that it had happened. So like I was in the, like, you know what it's like being in the middle of game action, like. And then, like, right as I'm talking to somebody about it, it's like, oh, we need a new pitcher. It's like I was thrown in the middle of an inning, and it was just like all, stuff going on.
Like, I'm warning my first baseman. You want me to throw some strikes?
Dude, right? Like, so I think the biggest reaction with that was like, the Yankees. Like, does it have to be the Yankees? Because I think we were all on the same. Like, I'm guessing you guys were all on the same boat. Like, everybody thought it was going to be the Red Sox.
Red Sox,
and I thought. So obviously from a future standpoint, like the prospects that we got back from the Yankees, Bryan's got me feeling pretty good about him. But I can like the Red Sox. You know what I mean? Can't bring myself to.
No.
So I grew up, and my best friend was a Yankees fan, and so I've hated the Yankees just because, like, especially during elementary, like, they're out there winning World Series, going to the World Series all the time, and I'm a Cubs fan. Like, we didn't even smell in the playoffs back then, and like, he's excited, and so it's like I remember watching the playoffs every single time, rooting against the Yankees, and then he goes to the Yankees, and it's like, oh man, it just can't be.
Yeah, it's tough, man. Funny, like, while you guys were talking to Bryan, I was scrolling Twitter and I saw somebody posted a video of Rizzo walking up to the plate, and he still got the same walk-up song. And the retweet was, they're not even clapping. Like, they're not even, the dugout wasn't clapping. The fans were just like regularly clapping. It's like, no, you guys, get with it.
It's New York. They don't understand.
Yeah, I like, listen, I think the other thing too that's frustrating about it, people. So you mentioned, Joe, talking about the stages of grief, and I don't know exactly which one this would be, but I think that there are a lot of people, I guess, denial. They're like, no, there's no way Rizzo's coming back. He's going to get, like, New York's going to love him. The fans are going to fall in love with him. And New York's got all the money. Like, the Yankees would be stupid not to re-sign him at the end of the season. There's a lot of validity to that. I think that's, it makes sense for the Yankees. They went after Rizzo for a reason, and they obviously have the money to pay him. I think the most intriguing thing, so the most difficult thing about all three of them homering in their first game is, as much as I want them to shout out to brother BKL Contreras, I want to make sure that I'm not just talking over the comment there, but
just saying we're doing good work.
Yep.
Hey, shouts out to the Dingers crew. I don't want to monopolize, but I do want to say, like, this is how I feel right now, and you guys tell me if you agree. As much as I want all three of them to succeed, the better they do, the more unlikely it is that we re-sign them. Now, I understand that it's probably not very likely to begin with, but if they perform well with these teams, it's gonna jack up their price in the offseason. And if they perform well in the playoffs, it's going to continue to go up. So, yeah, Mark, like, I want to open the floor to you guys, obviously. What do you think about that?
No,
yeah, do you think we'll re-sign any of them?
No.
What do you think, Jeff?
I right now, I feel like no. I just don't feel like – I don't think any of them want to come back. After reading like what Jed said on ESPN radio this morning with that interview he did, but there's three sides to every story. There's the player's story, there's Jed's story, and then there's the truth. So who knows who's trying to make who out to be the bad guy here, but
or it might be just different perspectives. Like, I kind of feel like it's a little bit of like Jed feeling like, no, I think I did it this. Like, I feel like I gave them a good shot at a contract, and they're like, no, you were just kind of like talking. It wasn't like us sitting down at a table with our agents and everything. And like, I don't know. I just feel like it's everybody's fault. It's right. Jed's fault. It's the player's fault. It's us fans' fault. It's kind of everybody at fault here.
I don't think any of them are going to come back. I don't think the Cubs are going to want to spend big money in free agency this year like they have in the last 2 years. I had another point, but it escaped me. Kevin, what do you think? Maybe it'll come back to me.
I don't know. I'm a little worried about this offseason in general with a new collective bargaining agreement. Like, I think everything's going to get pushed way back because I don't think any player is going to sign until that bargaining agreement is figured out, and I think that's going to take a while. And so
I think the players want to sign. I think all the owners aren't going to sign anybody.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. There's going to be that wackiness there.
Well, right. So honestly, probably no free agent's going to sign until way after the winter meetings. And then you look at some of like Scott Boris's guys that have like been waiting to sign a contract in free agency, like Jason Worth, Jake Arrieta, Bryce Harper. None of them were on the opening day roster because they didn't sign until after opening day because he was trying to put the screws to an owner and get his players the most money he can. So I bet one or two of the core three probably don't start opening day next year because they haven't signed a contract yet.
I know, Jake, you put out early this morning, like, who do you think they're going to sign out of them? And you're like, I think Rizzo. And I was like, yeah, I agree. And then it was like 5 minutes after I was listening to Cap and heard Jed say all that. I was like, oh, never mind. They're all gone. They ain't coming back.
Yeah, that tweet's been entertaining to watch today because I've been picking some low-hanging fruit on Twitter recently. I tweeted something about Zobrist and his ex-wife, who will not be named, and that did some pretty good numbers. And then this one, I said Rizzo will be wearing a Cubs uniform in 2022, which is like, there's no basis for that. It's just me being a fan. trying to manifest it. And man, the replies are so split. Yeah, right. Like, it doesn't mean anything. Like, I do think that if we re-sign any three of them, he is the most likely. The actual odds of it, probably not great. But I do think
I'll tell you what,
the more that I go ahead.
Like, I agree with you. If we do sign one, it's going to be him. Just because on Thursday, when it was announced, he spent an awful lot of time hanging around Wrigley with his family and his dog. And even, like, it seemed like it took him forever to want to leave. But then again, when Steinbrenner and Brian Cashman start throwing around a piece of paper with a number and a bunch of zeros behind that number,
right?
I mean, you could start liking foot-long coney dogs, couldn't you?
I mean, and that's the thing too, is that if I'm interacting with fans who aren't super plugged in, and obviously I'm not saying I'm the most plugged in, like, there are obviously people above me. I'm not, trying to claim to be an authority or anything, but when other fans like respond to the tweet and say, "Oh, we're gonna get all of them, like, they're all gonna come back," or like, "Actually, I really hope that we get KB. KB's gone," and it sucks. It totally sucks. But you look at the way that we treated him, and you can tell that there is a physical sense of relief with him in San Francisco. It is so obvious. I mean, it was so obvious watching yesterday, like him with the press, him during the game. The fans gave him a great ovation. San Francisco's got to be a phenomenal place to play.
Shithole.
Jeff doesn't like San Francisco.
I've been to San Francisco. It's the only time I've seen it. It's an acceptable place where you can wear a queen-size bed comforter as the only thing you have on, and bang.
They're living free, Jeff.
Next to the wall.
They're living free in San Francisco. Wouldn't that be nice to just wear a comforter around?
You've never been to a toga party?
Yeah, come on. No, I mean specifically, like, it's seriously though. I think Oracle Park is gorgeous. I mean, it's not Wrigley. We've been spoiled by Wrigley, but I mean, if I have to choose a number two, it's Oracle. I mean, I've never been, but it's the top of my list of the stadiums that I want to go to. But I think that the point that I'm trying to make is I've been trying to be clear with fans who aren't super plugged in that as much as we want them to come back, and as much as I want them all to come back, I don't want to overpay them. I don't want another. I mean, Jason Hayward is an exception. We signed him when he was a young free agent, but I don't want an Albert Pujols contract. I don't want a Miguel Cabrera contract into their twilight years where you're still paying him, $30+ million at that point. So and fans don't get that.
Talk about Jason Hayward quick. I have a thing going on right now with my daughter that whenever Jason Hayward doesn't hit the ball to second, I will buy her a bag of Skittles.
So are you keeping count?
I haven't bought it. Yeah. It's like if he doesn't hit it to second base or strike out, one of those two, like, she gets a bag of Skittles.
You have to start a thread of this on the Dingers Twitter now.
Yeah, you
because like I want actually a count, like, because I'm super curious. I know we can look at StatCast or whatever, but like, I'm super curious. So I'm holding you to that, Mitch. You got to keep a count on Twitter.
Yeah, because he was like, "Can we have Skittles for popcorn and movie tonight?" I said, because Jason Hayward's up to bat. That I was like, if he doesn't strike out or hit it to second base, I will. And he struck out. I was like, well, you're not getting Skittles. And she's like, well, can we keep this going? I was like, let's keep this going the rest of the season. Let's do it.
Yeah, that's one of those. Dad's not worried about buying Skittles.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. I think that's awesome.
Here's where I'm at with all this. Like, so if you look at the Fangraphs rankings, 11 of the top 11 Cubs prospects, 4 of them came from the trades in the last 2 days or 3 days now. And you look, like, as long as I've been a Cubs fan, like, I think back of like when the Cubs got Ryan Sandberg, they traded away Larry Boa. And at that time, Cubs fans loved Larry Boa. They thought he was like the best. And people did not like Ryan Sandberg when they first got him over here. They're like, who the heck is this guy? We're giving up Larry Boa for Ryan Sandberg? Who the heck is this guy? And then you go to the 2012 trade deadline. We traded Ryan Dempster in a sell-off. And who'd we get? Kyle Hendricks. And if you think about Kyle Hendricks, how he was rated, he was not rated high. Nobody thought that he would be a number 1 starter. They're picturing him a number 5 and maybe not even making it. Probably not even making it to the major leagues. In that same trade deadline, we traded Scott Feldman and got Jake Arrieta and Pedro Strop, who they turned out pretty well. They helped us with a World Series. We got rid of Andrew Kashner and got Anthony Rizzo. And I remember that day.
The biggest steal. I mean, my
But
gosh.
I remember that day, though, when people were ticked that we got rid of Andrew Kashner, because at that time, he was pretty decent for the Cubs that year. He had a pretty good year. And they were pretty ticked that we went and got Rizzo from San Diego. They're like, who is this guy? The little bit he got in the pros, he didn't do very well. Why are we picking up this guy? Slow first baseman. And it's like, whenever these things go through, we're going to here in a little bit, give it 4 or 5 years, we're going to have new jerseys with new names on it that we're going to be supporting and loving. And when an era ends, a new one begins. And I kind of have to think of it that way. And I even I tweeted this out, like, yeah, I'm sad that all this happened. Our core 3 is gone. And it kind of feels like your heart's kind of broken. Like my wife was talking about, like, she loved Rizzo and just because
Yep.
She was like, I just love Rizzo and Baez because they have personality. She's like, KB, I just didn't get to know as much, but they have personality. Like, I love that. And it's like, and we do too. Like, our hearts are breaking. But I looked at my son and told him everything all about the trades. And he was a little bit down, but he was like, whatever. He's 7. But I'm thinking about when the next Cubs great baseball, if I can use Jed's great baseball team or great team, next Cubs team that's coming forward, it's going to be when he's 9, 10, 11, when he's going to get to know baseball a little bit better. So selfishly for me, it's like, I'm looking forward to that, being able to watch good Cubs baseball again during that era of his life when I fell in love with baseball. Like, I remember falling in love watching the Cubs play in '89. I remember watching them play against the Giants in the earthquake. And I remember those things happening. And so and you look forward to this year, and you look down the future. Here in 2022, they're going to have $51 million on the books. 2023, they're going to have $42 million on the books. That's it.
I love this next one, though.
In 2024, they're going to have $5 million because of no more J-Hay hitting the ball to second base. They only have $5 million in payroll in 3 years on the books. That's it.
And I think that's Bodie, and there's no guarantee that he's even. I mean, they'll have to pay him unless they trade him, but it could be 0.
And so that the biggest thing that you want is opportunity and having flexibility. And the Cubs are going to have a ton of flexibility with a really good farm system. And so I want Cubs Twitter, I want Cubs fans to see the big picture here. And it's hard for us here and now, especially on Friday. It was hard for us to have that happen. But when you zoom back and see it from a big picture, you get to see what could possibly happen. Maybe they sign Nick Castellanos in the offseason this year. I don't know. You don't know. That could be the jump start. You're looking for one jump start that gets them going. And when Brian's talking, maybe it isn't next year. Maybe next year we get really excited about all our minor league system. And I'm okay with that. I will still watch all the Cubs games. But I remember back to 2014 and 2015, 2013, watching all these guys in the minor league system, just killing it. And you're like, oh man, it's coming. And it's kind of building. You can kind of feel it. And that's fun. And it's going to be fun to experience that again, I think. And so that's where I'm kind of at with all this. And I just have to keep, Brian did it perfect. The next wave is coming, and I support this logo, not the names on the back. And that's what we kind of have to keep telling ourselves. We support this, the jerseys, we support that logo. The names are going to change. The owners are going to change. We got to keep supporting that. And so that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I think he used the phrase "you support the laundry."
Yeah.
Was that his phrase? I love that.
That's great.
And even when you look at the team, so we're way ahead of where we were at the last time we had to rebuild. We already have a second baseman. Madrigal is going to be a stud second baseman. Maybe not defensively. Maybe he can shift to the DH like Bryan said, but he can hit. The dude in all through college, minors, pros, he's hit above 300. Do we have a guy hitting above 300 this year? Did we have a guy hitting above 300 last year?
That's rhetorical, right? Yeah.
He doesn't strike out. His walk rate is super high. His contact rate is like 93% contact rate when he has 2 strikes. Like, it's just ridiculous. We have a shortstop in Horner. Or he could be a Zobrist type guy and play a little bit in outfield. He did a little bit this year. We have Contreras behind the plate if we can build around him. Our starting pitchers, we already have Alzolay, we have Steele, we have Thompson, we have other guys loaded. Bryan talked about them. They're loaded in our system. We're way ahead of where we were at in 2012. So there's still fun things to look forward to.
Yep,
for sure.
I agree. And I think the thing that'll be struggle in the next couple of months will be when a young guy comes up and pitches. Like Justin Steele's going to come in and start a game, and then you might see him get shelled. And it's like, oh, well, what'd we do? We wrecked the whole system for this or whatever. It's like, it's one game, dude. Do you not remember when Hendricks first started out? Like, there is a learning curve. You got to get through it. Right, exactly.
It's the same with Alzolay right now. Like, I tweeted it last night, or did he start? Yeah, did he start yesterday?
Yeah.
Are we playing baseball? Sorry.
Yeah. He started yesterday.
He's obviously working on the changeup right now, and he struck out Soto on a changeup, I believe, and it looked great. I mean, that's what we're working on right now. It's like I've got Alzolay in a dynasty fantasy baseball league, and this stretch that he's on has got me a little like, do I try to dump him? Do I drop him? And it's like, first of all, I'm not competing this year, so I'm going to hold on to him. I want him. No one cares about your fantasy baseball team, Jake. But the point I'm making is,
no, it's okay. I'm enjoying listening to it.
But it makes me think about Alzolay in a different sense than if I didn't have him on that team. And it's exactly like you just said. It's all about these guys are not going to come up and be studs. Even the stud prospects who have debuted this year, like Wander Franco, Jared Kelenic, Vidal Brujan, and then a bunch of pitchers for the Royals, like across the board. All these highly touted prospects have come up. It's an adjustment period. I mean, that's a big jump from AAA to the majors. And yeah, if there's anything we can caution fans about, it's like, listen, these guys are gonna be here and they're gonna be good. It might take a season or two for some of them. They're not gonna come out the gates like KB did. That's a special player. And we're not going to, if we see that, we're lucking out, because that's essentially like 2 once in a generation prospects you're looking at. He did
strike out 4 times in his first game.
He also won Rookie of the Year. So no, that's a good point. Even he had an adjustment period.
Yeah. Well, something that I'm going to be watching with Alzolay is that can he get left-handers out? Because he's struggled like every time a lefty gets. I mean, who did we play the series before when Cincinnati, and it was like, man, he just got shelled. Votto had his number, and it was like, all right, we'll get all the righties out. We'll get all the righties out. Lefties, they're gonna just rake off him. So that's just something to watch. Is how is he going to be able to handle getting lefties out? And he's going to have to learn that if he wants to be an elite starter or be our number 2 type starter. So, well, you guys have anything else? I mean, I feel like we had a little bit of soapbox, got a little emotion out.
I think we're probably the most positive Cubs podcast this week.
Yeah.
I think we've had time to process a little bit too. Like, I was listening to Cubs Related, and they recorded Friday night, I think. So that was really fresh.
Ooh, hot takes.
Yeah. The biggest thing that I want to pose to you guys here, to wrap things up, I tweeted a thread, and I think Mitch, you responded about Hoyer's takes this morning on radio, and the player's perspective. So if he's telling the truth, like you said, there are three sides to every story, but if Hoyer is telling the truth, that these guys didn't push back at all, which I find very difficult to believe. But if they didn't, they're betting on themselves right now. So if we can leave it on a high note, like a positive note for Cubs fans, think about it in the sense of like, you're working for a job and you love your job. You want to stay there, but you think you deserve a raise. You ask for the raise and they come like maybe halfway or 75% of the way. And you're like, no. I know I'm worth more. So in context of the core, that's what just happened with them. They're going to go into this offseason. They're going to test the free agent market. They're going to bring numbers back to Jed, and they're going to say, hey, here's what the Mets are offering. Here's what the Giants are offering. Here's what the Yankees are offering. Can you match it or exceed it? First of all, I'll leave the caveat of we're lucky if they do that, if they give us that opportunity to match. Mm-hmm. But that's what's happening right now. These guys think that they're worth more money, and they have every right in the world, and we want them to bet on themselves because we're still fans of those players, right? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of like, that was one thing that I wanted to talk about that I feel like is being kind of overlooked. If you're really fans of these players, if you really love these players, you want them to get the money. I know Joe Kilgallen's all about that, but then at the same time too, I trust Jed to be diligent and understand, like, I'm not going to match in this occasion because I know that paying Rizzo, X amount of dollars over 7 or 8 years is not going to age well. So I think free agent's going to be really interesting once the CBA is figured out, and that's kind of what I'll be looking for.
Yeah, when talking about Jed and his comments, you heard a lot of people just say that, like, he's just a mouthpiece for Ricketts, and this is all Ricketts. I don't think this whole like trading all three of these was totally Ricketts. I Jed's too smart of a baseball guy to do that. Like, I think he sees maybe what their numbers are and projected in the future, and he's like, no, like I'm not going to pay them that. I offered them what was league average or what they were valued at. And I'm not going to budge on that because I can find somebody else, or we can just tear this down and start this whole thing over and build the next championship, because we've seen that it hasn't worked. And so he had to do something. And so Jed is just too smart of a guy. And I mean, you never know. He might have a little foot in the door of knowing what's going to happen with the trends of baseball, of his buddy Theo working with MLB. Like, I mean, I'm sure they talk. He might get a little like, no, like contact bats is where it's at. Power isn't not going to be a thing very much because we're going to have some new rules or something's going to be going on. You never know. But I don't think that Jed wouldn't have made this deal because his legacy is on the line here too. Right. If this doesn't work out, a lot of fingers are going to be pointed at him.
Yep.
It's his job to build a winner. Yeah.
And so he's betting on himself too. He's betting on himself. Like, no, I don't need these three. I can go get some other guys group, and I know who I have already in my minor league system. I'm confident in what I have and what I can build. And I mean, you gotta say, like, I trust Jed. I just like I trusted Theo. I trust that Jed is going to do the right things. And when you look at that, I laid out how much money they have. When the time comes, the Cubs will spend money. I guarantee you, when the time is coming, they're going to spend. They're going to play big ball. They're going to pull up their big boy pants and play when it's time. And I think Jed is smart enough to know when that is. And maybe it isn't next year. And we have to be okay with that, because I still think, like, when the time is right and all these young guys start coming up, he's going to go out and spend. Yeah, but I did like his authenticity and him being a little bit real. And when you could almost sense in his voice the frustration of, like, no, I did go and talk to them about numbers. Like, it was frustrating that they wouldn't come back with anything. Like, that's part of negotiating, and that wasn't there. Like, you can tell it just in his voice. So that's where I think
And you mentioned too, I agree. I think the frustration was there. And you mentioned too, just to make sure that I give you your credit, on 670 The Score this morning, the second of the radio interviews, he did say at the end of the interview that he talks to Theo a lot. And apparently he talks to Theo about these moves. So you could be completely correct that Theo is like, no, get the contact bats, secure those bats. That's what you need to do. So yeah, I can't remember who tweeted that. Like, oh, when I heard that Theo was in his ear too, that makes me feel even better. So like, yes, Theo had his faults, but it's obviously it's Jed's decision at the end of the day. He's going to make the decision that he thinks is right, and he's given us zero reason not to trust him thus far. I mean, it's only been a year, like not even a year, but he's given us zero reason not to trust him. So.
Yeah, and when he was trading the core, and when that was coming up as being a big thing that was coming down the line, my worry was that he was going to trade them, and we weren't going to get good pieces back. But the prospects that he's pulled in through this, like, I'm kind of wowed by the amount that kind of came back and the quality, and it's kind of one of those like, okay, this was clearly like he developed a two-prong approach, if what he's saying is correct. Like, he threw out some extension offers, but he also heavily scouted these teams to pick out what he wanted to accent what's already in our farm system. And that's not something you do at the 11th hour right before midnight. He had that planned out beforehand.
Well, especially like the Bryan deal. Like, I think he knew the teams I think that he wanted to work with. I think he was trying to do nice things by Kimbrel, keeping him in Chicago. I think he was trying to send Bryant out west like Bryant wanted. So he knew
Javi to the Mets with Lindor, like
getting the pitcher Kelenic, or not Kelenic, what's his name? Killian.
Yep.
Killian. I think he wasn't highly touted, but I think from Bryan, like, he would rate him number 2 in our system. Like, I think, and he's killing it this year in Double-A. Like, his walk rate is like way down. Like, his strikeout rate's pretty high. Like, I mean, that's things that, like, you gotta look at. That he's smarter than you think. And so, yeah. All right. Well, we've been going for an hour. I don't know if any of our listeners are still listening, but it's been fun.
I have no idea. We killed the battery in my iPad.
I was wondering, Jeff. We're getting a nice close up, up nose view of Jeff. So if you need to go check it out on YouTube just to notice later, you can point out the nose hairs that need to be.
I'm getting tired of holding this phone.
Oh, so we should continue for at least another 30 minutes. So we can watch Jeff.
Kevin. I'm going to see you at 5 for tomorrow, Kevin.
Oh, you're going to come run a couple miles. Cool.
Yeah. I'm going to check you.
We'll end. Hang in there, Cubs fans. It's gonna be a long process. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be frustrating. I haven't missed a game in like probably 3 years. I think I've watched at least every game. Second half of the season is going to be rough.
I tell you what, if there's one plus side to this, they're going to sell a shit ton of programs because nobody's going to know who's on the roster. Seriously, especially when September college happened. Like, who's this fucking guy?
That's awesome.
All right. Well, that does it for episode 51 of the Dingers podcast. Thanks for listening.
Good night, Chad boy.
Oh, Mitch wandered off.
Where the fuck did Mitch go? I bet he had to go to the bathroom. You know he's got a small bladder, right?
We're still live.
Yeah.